Hello,
Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good
Good afternoon,
How's
everyone.
everyone?
How you
Hey.
doing?
Thanks for inviting me, guys.
Most definitely. So while it's
I'm
getting
excited.
live, you want to just share it to your page now?
Yes, absolutely. Let's see.
As we wait for our audience to gather.
It's not showing up on here yet, but that's all right.
Yeah.
So let's get started. So first of all, let's get the obvious out of the way. Mark Chase, another article about Jamal Washington. So let's just talk a little bit about what happened and your guilty plea and what's going on from here.
Okay, well, before, if that's okay, Ken, just a quick introduction.
Okay.
Everyone knows who I am, at least because it's my page. Hey, Pastor Mac, Councilman Jamal, Washington Lake County. Councilwoman Lavita Sparks Wade of 6th District of Gary, Indiana.
GI.
And Ken Davidson, what is this? Editor and Northwest Indiana Gazette.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So as we got that established, to answer your question, Mark, as far as how do I feel about the Ken.
Well,
See,
Mark's
you
the
said
one
Mark.
Mark's the one asking the question, so we'll talk to him too. What the
Okay.
heck?
Yeah, right. So, okay, I know I have talked about this numerous times, but one more time. Look, let's talk about one of my charges on my case was the invasion of privacy. I got a phone call, and it said my daughter was sexually assaulted at school. You better believe I called them. I called my wife at the time. I texted her, hey, what's going on? I want to know what's going on with my kids. So with that being said, they tried to put me in jail for 6 months.
And you said your wife at the time. You were going through a divorce at the time, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Not that excuses anything,
No.
but it was a domestic situation where you were going through a divorce.
Right.
And you're divorced now? Or still going through a divorce? Okay, but you're separated now. You don't live there anymore, correct?
I don't live with her.
Okay.
So, with that being said, Ken, I know Mark Chase was saying on his paper that they gave me a free pass. You know, I want people to remember that my case was in Porter County, the judge of Porter County, and they hired what they say
a special prosecutor.
A special prosecutor. So by no means was they trying to do me any favors.
And I've talked about that a little bit on the radio for people that have questions. The reason that a special prosecutor was appointed is because technically the council controls the budget for the Lake County Prosecutor's Office.
Correct.
So that's not like special favoritism or anything. When you're in a situation where one person controls the budget for the other,
right,
you would want to keep that distance. And so that's something that would happen in the case of any
right,
council person that was
right,
charged. And I just want to say this. I mean, as far as somebody who looks at court cases on a regular basis, anybody that goes down to the courthouse or takes a look at the docket can see, and hopefully we can get some statistics on this at some point, but in the majority of D-felony cases, especially on a first offense, people do plead guilty to a misdemeanor. It's not something that's extremely out of the ordinary, and there were some other, and we don't have to spend our whole 20 minutes on this. You've told me that there were some other extenuating circumstances in the case with regard to the facts of the case and things like that. So let's, and you did apologize, right?
Oh, most definitely,
Okay,
for my part in it. But I think I want to point out the fact that, Ken, is that by no means was anyone doing me any favors. During this time that it's happened, DCS, local politicians got involved with DCS. I didn't get to see my kids for 8 months. 8 months. So when people are saying that Jamal's having favoritism, I don't know how you would feel if you didn't see your kids for 8 months because they doing that political jargon. Now I couldn't say none of this stuff before because I'm going through a case, Ken,
right,
but that's horrendous. And during that same time, my daughter gets sexually assaulted, other personal issues go on, and I have to sit there and take it. And then they try to put me in jail because I text and called and said, hey, is my daughter okay? That's what the invasion of privacy was. So I think any man will call a family, you know?
This brings up another issue that I hadn't even thought about until we're sitting here right now talking. And so they were saying that one of the issues that Mark Chase brought up is that you were celebrating afterwards. But in some respect, I mean, this is the first time you get to see your children in 8 months. You're now no longer under the cloud of, the very real possibility of spending some significant time incarcerated. So certainly there could be a sense of relief that goes on. And if you had dinner with some friends, now did you have a party? Did you?
There was no party. Again, I
Okay.
will go back to 8 months. I did not see my kids, Ken. I don't know how you would feel, Lavita, but for 8 months, this political stuff is going on in the background because I'm adamantly against the side of the RDA. I think it's ridiculous because I'm adamantly against the train and different issues, and I'm very vocal on it. So what they did was they said, let's try to shut this young man down. Fortunately, I made a mistake and let myself get a part of something that I brought upon myself. But the political opposition, they took it and tried to twist it and say, okay, now we're going to discredit this man. And by doing that, hopefully that will shut down the talk over the RDA and the train. And I'm here to tell you, Mark Chase, I know you're a hired gun, and I'm okay with it. I am okay. I will keep speaking because I'm opposed to the RDA. I'm opposed to the train. And those are some of the things I want to talk about today. I know, but if anyone had not seen their kids for 8 months, and I love my kids from the bottom of my heart, how would you feel that you know that the sheriff got involved in my DCS case? And I mean, come on now.
Well, if I can interject.
Most definitely.
At this time, I worked for DCS for 15 years. Started out as a public assistance caseworker and worked my way up to middle management. So I was, when I left the agency, over the child abuse hotline and the investigators that investigated, as well as supervisors and several other folk. But it was about a 60-unit team that we had. And one thing that was the law is, and it was at that time, the parent had to see their child within 5 days of our having taken custody. Now they've reduced that to, I believe it's 48 hours. Okay? So for the 8-month period that you did not see your children, DCS violated state law.
And nobody's talking about that.
And nobody's
For 8 months,
talking about
Lavita.
that.
For
Nobody's
8 months, and I
talking
can't
about
say nothing. And you got the Times. Every time they talk about me, Lavita and Mark, they put my mugshot. I mean, thank God, I think I'm semi-attractive, right?
Right.
But I don't see them doing that for the sheriff.
Absolutely.
They put this nice picture up for him and these other politicians that's they quote friends.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see that for the mayor of Lake Station.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see that for Phil. I didn't see that for any other person. But guess what? Jamal Washington.
Or an African American.
African American.
Let me speak to it like this, because this is a real bias that I see personally in regards to African American men. Here we have a young man who's never had a record. This is the first time you've been arrested. And here we are. Every time Mark Chase gets an opportunity, he puts in your mugshot to further try to berate you and berate your image. But when I see the sheriff, and this is any article that he's talking about, we're not even talking about the case. We're talking about things subsequent to the case.
Right.
So when I see him putting an article talking about the Lake County Sheriff, he's sitting at the table, just chilling. When we see any other politician, like you said, Philpott and any other Caucasian, and you don't want to make it a racial thing, but it is a racial thing, because I see here we are, Jamal Washington, and even though I may disagree with behavior, as far as what's the fella name from East Chicago?
Robert Battle.
Robert Battle. They put his mugshot in there all the time. And so I'd like for them to just be fair.
You know what? We have a guest that saying they thought this was about improving the city and not what was said. The reason why we want to start off with this, ladies and gentlemen, is because we want to set the stage to why they're attacking me so much. Because of the RDA, because of the train and our position in those situations. So that's the only reason we start off right there, Julian.
Sure.
Because we want to set the stage and say, hey, this is why we're being attacked. And I think one of the articles they said that the Times said either get on board or move out.
Absolutely.
Right.
So
Don Babcock from NIPSCO, and then it was
Right.
repeated again by Times officials over and over,
Right.
referring to people as region naysayers,
Right. And
social media snipers.
Right, and they're continuously calling on Democrats to go against Jamal Washington. and other politicians who have possibly made mistakes. And I'll just say this: I'm new to this arena, and I must say that the political scene is a very, very cruel and unusual place, because oftentimes politicians are held to a higher standard, as well we should be. But when you have a personal situation, as was Councilman Washington, that doesn't fit in that definition of what we call corruption that Mark is trying to fit into that arena. Public corruption is one thing, personal issues is something else. And he who is without sin cast the first stone. If you've never done anything, then you can throw a stone at somebody else. Okay?
And let's tie this into
Yes.
what Julian's asking about, is how to improve the city. You
Absolutely.
know, one of the things
That's
that
where we're
really
going.
struck me at the city council meeting last week was when Councilman Brewer said, you know, we've got serious issues with people dying in the streets and children dying in a fire, and why are we talking about this public corruption with Mary Brown, who is illegally receiving 2 paychecks? And I went up to him after the meeting and I said, you know, Councilman Brewer, you have to realize that public corruption is what leads to those issues.
Right.
The problem is that when people are receiving 2 and 3 paychecks from the city of Gary, the people on the streets to some extent go, well, I'm going to get mine too. And how can you tell them that they can't? When your city council person is illegally receiving 2 paychecks, the state has told her that she's illegally receiving two paychecks. The Indiana Attorney General, the Indiana State Board of Accounts, both have told her that she's illegally receiving 2 paychecks. She worked with the administration to try to cover up that information for as long as she could. And then even when it was brought out, she told you it's none of your business. Now, can you imagine any other
No, she
city?
didn't tell me. She told Rebecca White.
Oh, she told Rebecca White. Yeah,
Because I might have said something back.
can you imagine any other city employee? Or if there's any city
Yeah, that's
employees out there,
crazy.
tell me what happens if you walk into city council and tell them that they can't ask you questions about your job, that it's none of their business.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
And again, as we set the stage for the things that we want to do, we want to talk about those things that prevent us oftentimes from doing our jobs.
absolutely. And the RDA fits right
And
into
it fits
that.
right into that, absolutely.
So one of the things that I've been looking at is this sort of neighborhood transformation plan that Congressman Visklowski is pushing on local communities throughout the region. And one of the things that, so, you know, they're not giving us a lot of details on what's going on, so we have to look throughout the country to see what they're doing elsewhere.
Can I see this?
We have to look throughout the country to see what they're doing elsewhere. So,
Okay.
one of the first things that they always do is, hold on, let me see. What are you looking for? Your thing?
Yes.
It's right here. It won't come up on here because it's
You can keep talking. I'll pull it up.
here.
There you go.
It doesn't have flash.
Oh, okay.
That's why I didn't pull it up. Sorry. We can. All right. So we have to look throughout the country to see what they're doing. For instance, their lead architect just planned a community in Normal, Illinois. A community of about $50,000. They spent about $100 million, and you know, all long-term bonding, local money.
Right.
So we have to take a look at that and see how that's going to impact the region. But one of the things that they talk about always in order to accomplish these goals is that they have to rewrite the zoning codes. Does that sound familiar to you as a Gary City Council person?
More than any other ordinance, zoning is one of the things that comes up more often than anything else.
And hasn't this administration suggested they were going to completely rewrite the zoning codes?
I can't speak to that particularly because I don't remember that exactly.
Okay.
But what I do know is that oftentimes the administration comes before us with ordinances to rezone an area.
Okay.
And you know, that's something that we can look at. I can't say whether that's a good thing or a bad thing right now because I haven't had an opportunity to do any research into the whys.
But those are decisions that you as a council generally and historically have made with the
Yes.
input of people within your district.
Correct.
And what we're talking about here is sort of top-down zoning where the RDA or national organizations like the Congress for New Urbanism come to you and tell you this is how you're going to do your rezoning and this is how you have to do it.
Now
Without-
that's the problem.
right.
The
exactly.
problem is the layers of bureaucracy that continuously are impeding on our progress. And what happens is, the RDA is an appointed board. They're not elected officials.
Right.
And therefore, they are not held accountable as elected officials are to the decisions that they make. So when you rezone an area in order to fit into what you want versus being accountable and held accountable by the voters, what is the recourse? Okay, we're feeding money into the RDA by state law. We don't even have a choice anymore. And I know you guys know what that law is, and if you all could, somebody could chime in here.
My biggest feeling about the RDA, and tell me what you think, guys, is to me it's like prepaid credit. Okay? Okay? Well,
Yeah.
we give them money.
Yeah.
And I think I spoke about this briefly. We
Right.
give RDA money and say, RDA, here's $500 a month. We're just using that for simple math purposes, right?
Uh-huh.
Couple more
$500.
zeros, but
Yeah, a couple more zeros, right? But $500 a month. And then from there, all these entities, okay, for example, Gary give a certain amount. Another population give a certain amount.
Mhm.
And certain populations pay less. I don't think anybody pays more.
No.
But some pay.
Hammond
pays probably
a little
more. Okay,
More.
but pretty much that's a summary of it, right? So what we do with the RDA is now they get to tout some successes, right? They say, well, we're going to do this economic development project for you, City of Gary, even though majority of this money comes from you, but we're going to say that the RDA did it as RDA funding. That's not the case. I think if you really look at the logistics and how everything came to play, Indianapolis was built on Lake County, the backs of Lake County. For years, we funded different projects in Indianapolis. We gave, let's talk about the real deal. The steel mills got a tax break years ago. They still getting that same tax break. The City of Gary lost a lot of revenue.
Yes.
When we talk about property taxes, City of Gary lost a lot of revenue. Let's talk about the casinos. Gary, Hammond, they prosper from the casino funding than what the state do. The state said, hey, start funding some of those to Porter County, different county. Yet again, Gary, this part north is helping out.
Let's jump off there a little bit and explain the RDA funding a little bit.
Okay.
So the RDA is funded by two sources, and one is this casino money. And so what they do is they take $3.5 million of casino money from each of Hammond, Gary, and East Chicago. So every year before Hammond, Gary, and East Chicago even get their casino money, the RDA comes in and takes out their chunk. So over the 30-year course of this Westlake expansion project, that's $105 million.
It's a lot of money.
Now, Congressman Visclosky then came to each of those cities and said, I also need a quarter of
you see it.
of your seated money.
Right.
So
right.
for Gary, and this is where Hammond pays slightly more. So for the city of Gary, that comes out right now to about $700,000 a year.
Well,
but it's going to come
actually-
out to more.
Well, what happened once word got out that that's how much we were going to be paying in, then the administration came in and said, well, we probably don't need to pay that much, especially since we're not going to be getting a whole lot out of it. And I believe now it's down to like $300,000.
Okay,
year.
so Gary's
Yes.
to pay about $300,000 a
Gary's
year.
going to pay about $300,000 a year.
They're asking Hammond for $900,000 a year, which would make Hammond's total commitment $4.4 million a year. But it's also, let's not forget, it's a percentage.
Right.
And so those numbers are going to go up. So for instance, the county, they estimated
Right.
it to be $2 million. And I think by the second year it was up to 2.3 or $2.4 million. That's going to go up every year.
Let's speak
Right.
on the county level. I would like to lead an initiative to stop that. I mean, I want to take my involvement out of it.
Right,
I don't
right.
think it's fair. I mean, we'll talk about the train in a moment, but a lot of these things that they put in place, I just don't see it helping my district.
Absolutely.
I mean, you got your other people that saying yes they do, and they'll start talking about the airport. Talk about the airport. All the money that was sent to the airport, Gary, Indiana is still one of the highest unemployment rates in the nation. So what are we doing?
Right.
I won't say the rich get richer. The politically connected
Yeah.
get richer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the ones that's not, they don't.
Absolutely.
That's the real issue, and that's the real issue.
I have
why
two
think we're
politicians
talking
here, and
about
I'm still poor.
it. Exactly.
Well, fortunately, we're not politically connected.
Well, we are, but not in that degree. But
And the thing is the alliances that often are made. You know, you have to. I think it was Martin Luther King who said, "If a man doesn't stand for anything, he'll." Wait, how does it go? If a man doesn't stand for something, he'll fall for anything.
Right.
Thank you. And when you stand on principles, for instance, the $300,000 that is going into our part, the city of Gary's part of the seeded monies for the train, and we're talking about a train that's not going to go through the city of Gary. It's going to go from Cedar Lake,
No, from Hammond
to
to Munster.
Munster.
That's it.
does Munster even
8
want it?
miles.
Did they do a referendum? I'm hearing a
No,
lot
they
of
didn't do a
residents don't want it.
referendum.
Munster don't
It's-
want it.
it's-
They didn't pay in, right? Am I
They pay about
They are-
300,000, but they don't have to pay that 3.5 million
okay? They don't have to pay $3.5 million
because they don't have
okay.
a casino.
Okay. So personally, I voted against because it has to come up every year for the city council. Okay, and I voted against that particular resolution on last year. I'll vote against it again on this year. Now, I believe there were only two of us, myself and Reagan Hatcher, who voted against it because I don't see where the citizens of the city of Gary are getting any public benefit from it. And
Let's talk a little bit about
Okay.
that, because one of the things that they've promised is that they are going to redo some stuff in Gary. Now, primarily that redevelopment that Gary's going to see is going to be in the Miller section,
Mm-hmm.
which is great, something they should have been doing all along, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion. But it doesn't benefit the rest of the city very much. There's a disconnect physically and financially and in all other ways,
And
in my opinion,
culturally
between
and-
the town, the section of Miller
Right.
and the city of Gary.
Absolutely.
And that'll get me back to Jamal, and one of his passionate issues, which we've talked a lot about, is bus rapid transit. And so for $300,000 a year, how much bus rapid transit could we get going up and down Broadway?
Absolutely. And here's the thing. GPTC has long been trying to expand their ridership.
And has expanded service to
Exactly.
where the RDA spent $13 million and killed bus service throughout the region. GPTC had to come in and pick up the slack and connect with EC Transit for very limited ridership very limited routes outside the city of Gary.
Right. And they're actually talking about expanding into Porter County and out to Michigan City as well to see if we can get our bus to go out to the Lighthouse Mall. And, if we pour our money into pipe dreams, and this is what I'm calling it, because this project with the Westlake Corridor has been on the books for how long?
30 years
30
or
years,
more. It was
30
first
years or
proposed
more.
in 1964, by the way.
Okay, was it really?
Yes.
64?
64.
Wow.
Let's talk about that for a second. So, I know our congressman had said they did a study and they proposed ridership that they think they're going to get.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at all the actual riderships compared to the estimated ridership, you look at your actual is so much lower. And from my understanding, when you're talking about economic development, somebody tell me if I'm wrong, somebody chime in from here. If you're talking about economic development, you're talking about the traffic count to whatever particular area.
Uh-huh.
McDonald's, for example. McDonald's, they pay tons of money to do research to find out what's the best location
Right.
to open up McDonald's. And then what other restaurants do, they piggyback off of that, and they see a McDonald's, they'll open a fast food joint. Now, with that being said, listen, ladies and gentlemen, the traffic count is bypassing Gary, Indiana.
Right.
Maryville, my district. Why would I support that? So, from an economic standpoint, if I want more traffic, what Pete is telling me is, don't worry about Gary. You don't have to go past Gary anymore. Right now, it's set up, you got to go past Gary. That's wrong. I cannot support the train. Now, with that being said, they want to give us a little nugget, right? And say, well, we're going to fix up the train from Gary to Michigan City. What's the ridership on that right now? 2?
Well, and one of the ways that they're going to speed it up, by the way, is these express trains that just fly right through Gary. They're not
Right.
even going to stop to take a look for a second anymore or let you on or off. They're going to fly right by your, that's the double tracking initiative, is to allow these trains to fly by. But let's make clear, these are 3 separate and distinct projects.
Yes.
Double
Yes.
tracking, the transit-oriented development, and the Westlake extension. They like to talk about them and intermix them, but let's try to keep people clear on this. I support the double tracking project. I don't like the escalation in cost. It's gone from 100 million to 200 million already before they even started work on it.
It's going to go up some more.
Right, absolutely.
So,
But you know, anything we can do to improve that main line and some transit-oriented development with local input along the main line, I'm in support of. What I'm not in support of is Doug Farr coming from Chicago and telling us that we need to sandwich in mixed-use, multifamily residential properties in areas of Hammond where they don't want it. Even though we have areas of Hammond where they do want it, the president of the Hessville Chamber is going, hey, can we get some of that over here? And they're going, nope, you're not in the right area.
Okay, talk about
mean,
that.
yeah.
Talk about that for a second.
You know, I mean, there are certainly areas where these projects would work. If you look at the type of developments that they are talking about, with bus rapid transit, you could put those type of developments up and down Broadway. You know, they're talking about old style communities. So if you go to Crown Point, you will see that they have built condos above retail space just off the square in Crown Point. If you go to North Street in Crown Point, you'll see that they've put up a couple of these developments that are the same thing, with retail down below and residential up above. And these condos are selling for $250,000.
Okay.
Now, this is something that you could do in the city of Gary if you had the support to do it.
well, not only in the city of Gary, we got another one. I know you want to say something real quick. I know Mayor Hatcher has been trying to push the Civil Rights Hall of Fame.
Absolutely.
So now let's
That would
think
be the
about
first
this.
floor. That's the ideal situation for the
paid-
first floor.
There you go. He paid $50,000 for the assessment. This assessment showed the traffic count. The traffic count to this area
Right.
to say this is why we think this will be sustainable. Now, what they're doing with the train, I just think is terrible. Is saying forget a lot. They're gonna take away a lot of traffic count through the city of Gary. We're talking about also the convention center. I know some people think that we should have a food and beverage tax. I don't believe so. But let's say, for example, we put a lot of money into the Genesis Convention Center to grow.
No,
And
that
this-
doesn't exist in their mind.
No, it doesn't.
They talk about the fact that we don't have a convention
Yeah,
center,
yeah,
we have
yeah.
to build
It
one,
doesn't
but they never
Exactly.
mention that we have one, right?
Exactly, which was
Exactly.
built with federal dollars.
Right.
You were talking about as far as the affordable housing is concerned and the condos that are being built in Crown Point. One of the things that is going around the country right now is that we're trying to make cities livable cities again, walkable cities again. The urban areas, the suburbs turned traveling, commuting into this big nightmare, this big monster. And so people want to be closer to where they work.
Right.
Okay? The thing about building affordable housing in the city of Gary, you have to get the jobs back into the city. And how do we do that? First, we have to make this a safe place. Public safety is number one.
Right.
And in order to
Absolutely.
bring those monies back into the city, you have to make this place a safe place where people will want to live and to work.
Let's talk about a safe place. What are we doing? I know you're doing some research. We'll come back to training on it. For the city of Gary, what are we doing to improve our safety? I know we had a councilman that said he's upset. But it's the difference of talking about it and being about it. So what are we doing in the city of Gary to try to improve our safety situation?
One thing with our last budget, we did give, and this has been an initiative for the past couple years with the administration, is that we're trying to retain the officers that are on the police department as we speak. And so it's very difficult when salaries that are in surrounding communities are much higher than what our salaries are here in the city of Gary. So they did get a raise
So we have people like Renzo Williams. I hate to just throw people name out there making almost $1 million a year in different contracts, and we gotta have all public safety struggling to get vets and things of this nature. I mean, let's talk about the elephants in the room. I mean, that's what the real problem is. The real problem is the politically connected. They're getting the funds, and I know right now. We keep talking about the crime in Gary, but what are we doing to stop the crime? Mm-hmm. One of the things I did was I helped propose the resolution, or the ordinance, to give the sheriff's department that $250,000. By no means did I think that he would use that as an opportunity to increase
racial
tone.
Profile.
Yeah, racial profiling that Mark Chase isn't talking about. But my thing is, hey, how you doing, Minister Stevens? Oh, also, hey, mommy. That's right. I said mommy. My mom said it. Hey, mom. How you doing, mommy?
Say hi to Melvin. Hi,
Okay.
Minister. Hi, Melvin. Hi, Jamal's mom.
And I saw my sister was watching. Hey, Louise.
Now, my mother, I have to go over later and show her how to talk to her. And she said, I don't know how to do that Facebook Live. So I said, well, you can see it later.
But that's the real issue. There's so many issues people don't want to talk about because you step on people's toes. And that's part of the reason. Now, you know when you do a Facebook Live post, everything is reversed. So when you turn that over there, they can't really see that.
Well, I think I'm looking at it. I think they
on
can get
here
it.
it looks
You wanna see the
okay, but when
building.
they see
On
it,
there,
it's
it's
going to be
reversed.
reversed, right?
Okay, so this
Yeah.
there's my niece. Hi, Tony. So this is a shot, and I'm sorry if you can't see it. I'll repost it later. But of Normal, Illinois. Okay, so that's a design that Doug Farr did in Normal, Illinois.
Okay.
Now, a couple things that, as far as transit-oriented development that people need to notice about this right away is there are no setbacks from the street. There are no sidewalks, there are no setbacks from the
Oh,
street.
really?
Did you notice that? So that's one of the zoning code changes that you're going to see them pushing
You're not going
for
to have
cities
sidewalks?
to implement. Zero setback from the street. The buildings are right on the streets.
Really?
And so basically what they want to do is they also engage in, these are things that might sound familiar to both the viewers and elected officials, is they're pushing for these traffic calming things.
Okay.
So for instance, curb bump outs, roundabouts, those kinds of
Oh,
things
yeah.
that will slow people down so that we
Yeah.
can have bike lanes and walking lanes within the streets. But here in Lake County, we've already paid for the streets. So in Hammond, we have this situation where you're taking a street that you've paid to build and pave,
Right,
and then you're just taking a portion of it out for no reason,
right.
which doesn't make much sense to me. And you have
Exactly.
problems with snow plows and different things like that
Exactly.
also.
One thing I do want to point out, Hammond, I don't want to deter from that, but I think Mayor Tom is doing an outstanding job. Hammond is looking great. I mean, I'm telling you. They're building, they're doing a lot of stuff. I know you're a Hammond resident. I have to tell you, from the outside looking in, I'm like, okay, I see the improvement. I see you. And that's great. I just want that for my city. I mean, in my town as well, from Maryville.
One of the things that I think is really, look, Mayor Tom and this project is something that political science classes should study, because he's been masterful at getting what he can for his city because he understands what's going on here. But even he has said, this is coming. This is a train that's rolling right over me. I'm
Well,
probably
at least he's
the
getting
most
something
powerful.
from it.
Right, I understand
mean-
that. But you understand how powerful these forces are that are coming in when they
Right.
can steamroll over Tom McDermott and say,
Yeah, right.
hey, we'll give you a couple of concessions, but this is coming regardless. I mean, a couple of concessions, $300 million.
But he got something
But-
out
right,
of it.
exactly.
Which is, hey, let me get something out of it. What are we getting out of it? Maryville, what are we getting? City of Gary, what are we getting out of it? Oh, I'm sorry, we're losing traffic count. I have to keep going back to the traffic count. What are we getting? We're paying people to say, hey, I'm gonna give you $300,000 a year to help, at the end of the day, divert
Well,
divert
after-
attention from the city of Gary, Maryville.
After we already took $3.5 million out of your budget.
Exactly.
Which, by the way, there's a bill in Illinois right now to expand casino gaming in the city of Chicago.
Yes, it
You may
is.
not have $3.5 million of casino money left,
Right.
and guess what they're going to do if you don't have $3.5 million in casino money?
Exactly.
They're going to take it out of your general fund.
And they are building a casino in South Bend
Right.
as well. And
Yes,
so
right now.
that's going to be
Yeah.
coming up against the the dollars that are flowing into Northwest Indiana.
So I'm going somewhere with this. So
Okay.
you're saying that if we get a casino in Chicago and a casino in South Bend, what's going to happen?
Nobody's coming through here.
Okay, nobody's coming through here. But listen to us. If you get a casino, that splits the attention.
Oh,
That means more
absolutely.
people are going to go to that casino. Let me go back to the traffic count.
Okay.
This train is going to divert attention from the city of Gary and Maryville. Do you understand?
Okay.
Why in the world is the city of Gary or Maryville saying, here's my money?
thought about
Because
that.
the political connected.
If
I'm
the
telling
people
you.
in Munster can hop on the train and be at casino at
South Bend.
No,
Chicago? In
in
Chicago?
in
They're going to-
47
oh, yeah,
minutes
oh, yeah.
without driving.
Oh, yeah,
they
they're
can, They
going.
can drink at the casino.
Oh,
they can,
absolutely.
you know,
Goodness.
and don't have to worry about driving home.
Absolutely.
Or they can risk flat tires on Klein Avenue and go to the Gary
When they
Chicago
fix it.
Wait a minute, they
casinos.
can't even get to the casinos anymore from Klein Avenue,
Right.
can they? Because yes, we can. Yes,
You
we
can.
can.
You
It's the
can
other
from-
bridge
right.
past there that hasn't
Right.
been.
Which
rebuilt yet.
is a whole nother subject as to why they didn't rebuild it. Now I was at the meeting and I repeat this over and over, where Lonnie Randolph came in and passionately begged the RDA
Right.
to fund the rebuilding of Klein Avenue, and that's a whole nother Facebook Live subject. And we'll talk about that another
Well,
time,
I
hopefully,
will-
if you guys invite me back.
Most definitely. But to touch on that, I went down there and talked to the head of NDOT. And you know what he told me? He said, I'm not touching that. That is an issue for your local politicians.
Right.
He was upset. He said, you go back to talk to your local politicians. I said, excuse me? Oh, no, we're not touching that. That's his exact words.
Wow.
I recorded and everything. So
Wow.
with that being said, we'll talk about that another day. But there's a lot of issues. And if you're not politically connected, I am. You are. A lot of individuals that have, like, I have an old lady, Kendra. She has two masters. You know, I don't see her working.
Politically active, though. I mean,
Yeah, she's
constantly
politically
working
active.
for the
Active,
community,
right.
right?
But yeah, she's working, but no, she
But
doesn't
not
have a
getting paid
job.
for it, right?
So, I mean, it's so many issues out here.
Why doesn't
that,
Gary have a small business incubator?
I
Right?
You know,
I mean, so many communities do. Now, Renee is back. Renee Hatcher's back. And
Right.
she's
Oh, thank
spoken a
God.
lot
She's a good
about
lady.
cooperatives
right.
and developing cooperatives
Absolutely.
and things like that. And as somebody who's not on the council, she can do a lot more and in
Absolutely.
cooperation with the council if they work with her. So
Right.
hopefully that will happen.
And oftentimes this is what happens. You know, I majored in political science as an undergrad, and my master's is in public affairs, public administration. And what's in the book is different than what happens
That's-
on this front line. And as an idealist, I get so disappointed and so frustrated because it's supposed to work better
for the people.
for the people.
Right.
And that's why I got into this thing. I spent 20 years in child welfare because I tried to stay away from that politics because I'm screaming at the TV, I'm screaming at the newspaper, guys, this is not how it's supposed to be done. So when we get passionate people who care about people, as Councilman Washington does, as activists like Jim Nowacki and Kendra Johnson do, then those people are often pushed to the side. Their credibilities people go on the attack to try to destroy their credibility. And that is sometimes looked at from our perspective, you know, this is hard. This is a fight. This is difficult to do.
And most people don't have the resources.
And most people don't have the
most
resources.
people are busy trying to feed
Yeah.
a family or feed
Absolutely.
themselves.
Lavita,
Absolutely.
Ken, there's a political warfare that a lot of people don't know that's going on right now. I mean, there's different factions. We know the factions.
Yes.
You know, one of my strongest allies that I believe is yourself, Lavita, but also like the Mayor McDermott. I think the Mayor McDermott is that younger age that sees this, and he's very vocal. He
Right.
reminds me of us. He's
Right.
very passionate.
Right.
Sometimes he, like we are, very blunt,
Yeah.
and sometimes that's not politically correct.
Right.
But I think his heart is in the right place, as is ours.
Right.
Now, with that being said, you got this other side, the old regime. You had Judge Paris. Judge Paris got elected because what Judge Arredondo did, when he first got elected, he waited to the last minute, pulled himself off the ballot and said, Paris, get in there, put your name on the ballot, and guess what? He got in there. So They do these political shenanigans all the time. And then you had Judge Paris. Then you have Bunsich. I was yelling about towing last year before all this took place. I was yelling about it. I said, what's going on with this? Oh, don't worry about it. Now all of a sudden, it's a big issue. But
Maybe Mark Chase will write about that for you.
Mark Chase not going to write about it. He going to put my mugshot in there.
Because there were some irregularities in towing in the city of Gary, and Councilman Herb Smith was and is the chairman of the towing committee. He called a meeting. We looked into towing, and we had that one meeting, and we saw, there's some problems here, there's some issues here, and we never had another meeting about towing. And then subsequently, this came out with what the sheriff was doing. And
the Gary tow truck driver
the Gary
was
tow
charged
truck
with
driver
murder
was
Well,
charged
I was
with
from
murder.
2011.
I was told that Herb was threatened for his life if he don't leave towing alone. So there's
Okay.
a lot of issues. Again, this is my live stream, so I can say what I want.
Right.
But
Yeah,
it's an allegation.
It's
an allegation. It's an
allegation. That's what happened.
Uh-huh.
Now I don't know if it did happen or not, but that's what was said. That hey, I was threatened. So I get it.
Okay.
But there's a war,
Mhm.
and there's a war with the train. A lot of people, from my understanding, do not want the train. Now, a selected few want the train, but even people in Munster, from my understanding,
Right.
they won't even do a referendum
Right.
on it to get the feel of what Munster feels. From my understanding, a lot of residents they don't want the train either.
State law required that they do a referendum.
So why didn't
said
they do
we're
a
not-
referendum?
They said we're not going
I
to do it
don't-
because it will fail and it costs $400,000.
It would
Google.
fail.
I can repost the old Times articles. They
But
said
also,
the referendum would fail.
I
and we're not
heard.
gonna do
Hold
it.
on. What exactly did you hear? Because I heard that they didn't want to do a referendum because they thought that Munster. Now, this is what I heard. They said that Munster residents wouldn't want more black folks coming into the area. I don't believe that to be the case because I don't see people in Munster being racist like that whatsoever. But that's the ideal. So they say, you know what? I'm not going to do a referendum. I'm going to make sure it passes regardless. People, look, all you need is the people in power to push stuff along without you knowing it. When that seated passed, I was one of the only ones, and yourself and Commissioner Allen was hooping and hollering, why are we putting so much money in the seated? Why? It's a percentage. It wasn't a flat fee. That percentage changed as our income changed. So that's the real issue. But what they try to do is divert the attention off of the main issue.
Right.
Let's talk about Jamal Washington legal issues, right? Put a mugshot and hopefully people forget about the train. What people did, or what happens, anytime we had the financial crisis in the United States, guess what happened? We go to war.
Right. Right.
Let's look at the
Take a
war.
look at Elliot Spitzer, but we're getting off topic now.
Right,
What happened to him? But
Exactly.
here's a question that I have for both of you. Why were the Republicans so happy with Pete Buzz in 2016 that they didn't even run anybody against him? You know, we
Wow.
talk about the downstate Republicans and how they make plans for the region and all that, but who's working with Pete Visclosky on all of these plans?
Right.
The downstate Republicans are giving him everything he wants, right?
Right.
He wants a gas tax. Guess what we have? Gas taxes every year
And that's going to be an issue.
going on for eternity. It never stops going on.
And here's the thing. I'm not against Pete Visclosky. Let me get that clear. I'm not against Pete Visclosky at all. But I think that the exchange of ideas has got to happen. I believe that when we have a difference of opinion, that those opinions should be heard. And thus the politics. What happens is people will try to shut you down when you have a difference of opinion. And if we look at the train that Pete is proposing, I don't think that it's a good thing for the city of Gary, and this is why I speak against it. And the same thing with the both of you is that we're vocal, we're going to continue to say these things, and now that we have another tool with Facebook Live, I think that we have an avenue into people's homes that we've never had before.
Absolutely. And I want to agree with you 100% on that. This is not about anybody personally or anything else,
Right.
but it's about the democratic process and people having a say
Right.
in what happens in their area.
Exactly.
Now, when I talk about Pete Visclosky, I talk more about him as the congressman and the power that he's exercised over local control
Right.
instead of coming here and saying, what do you want?
Uh-huh.
It appears to me that he's come here and said, this is what you're getting.
Mm-hmm.
Has he ever come to you and said, what do you want?
Now, my thing is, let me be clear.
Not since I've been here.
I don't know the guy,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not getting phone calls, getting ideas ran past me.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm not gonna say I have a I don't like him or dislike him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm not getting a phone call. I'm not being brought into those discussions
Right.
because my ideas are not what they're looking to hear.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Abraham Lincoln. He brought his naysayers closer, so he can have lively discussions, and that's what you should get, so you can get to the end result. And what I'm saying right now, you got people like yourself. They want to shut you down on a council and don't want you to speak because they don't want the opposition to voice a different opinion of what they feel.
Right.
I think that's wrong. So as far as Pete Visklowski, I don't have an issue with him. Like Pete, I don't know. I don't know him either way.
Right.
I see Mark that runs around and Mark Lopez that go around and talk to people. I think he's trying his hardest, but I wouldn't say try his hardest. He can do a lot more as far as getting a true estimate feeling of what people think. Right? And I don't think a select few should be saying that. I think we should have referendums. I think we have community forums, but heck, they just did a community forum at 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
You know,
on a
people
Monday.
at work
On a Monday.
So,
And you submit a question on a comment card, and
Exactly.
maybe they'll answer
Yeah.
it. If they do,
And
they
then
really
you just say
answer
you're
it?
wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
so
exactly.
you're wrong and move forward. But
Right.
at the end of the day, I want to go on record, like I always have.
Mhm.
I'm opposed to the RDA.
Mhm.
I'm opposed to the train can. I think
Okay.
it's not good for our region.
All right.
Real quick, and we can end on this. Scott Pelath has called for the state of Indiana to move forward and allow citizens to have referenda. I'm going to contact him, and maybe we'll get
Oh,
him to talk
fantastic.
about that.
And
Because he wants legislation so that Indiana citizens on major issues, you know, like the religious freedom, we should have had a referendum.
Exactly.
Like, you know, medical marijuana, we should have a referendum.
We should have a referendum.
Like the train, we should
Yeah.
have a referendum.
Good
And
job,
so
Scott.
he's promoting it would require a constitutional amendment, which is going to require all of you
Right.
to get on board and tell, you know, your elected officials that that's what you want.
And Scott
So-
Pelath is our minority
House leader.
House leader
Right.
For the
And
Indiana
he's from
Assembly.
Fort Wayne or South Bend, I can't
Yeah,
remember
somewhere
which.
over that way.
Now, if you want to
Yeah.
see a place where exciting things are going on, talk about South Bend.
Oh.
You know, that's where
They
we
have
should be
a
looking to for
300
ideas.
They have a $300 million budget.
Isn't it the mayor I mean, you know what I appreciate about the mayor?
Mm-hmm.
Because he is who he is.
We're going to go on and on now, so
Right.
hopefully you'll watch this again later to get the rest of it.
Well,
So
the
we're just
mayor,
having fun here.
He is I think he came out, right? In South Bend.
As
Oh,
yeah,
I don't
as
know.
being
Did he?
yeah,
Okay.
he did. That's been
Okay.
And so
yes.
what he said was, you know what, I am who I am. He stood up on his morals. Man, you got to commend that. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
that's huge. You know,
That's
for
tough
people
to
to
do,
do that,
right.
you know, so.
It's easier today, but it's still tough to do for
Yeah,
anybody.
absolutely.
And he's doing a good job down there. So,
Absolutely.
I don't want to talk too long because I know a lot of people don't like to watch too long of a show, but
Right.
I just want to say, I don't know, you guys can say something as well. I'm happy that everyone tune in and get our thoughts, and we'll try to do this more often.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And
Thanks for inviting me.
absolutely. My final thought then is I want people to not only be tuned in, but to also begin to get involved more in politics. We can't do this by ourselves. We need those people not only who voted for us, but those who felt that, you know, their vote didn't count. Well, come on out to the community meetings. Come to the council meetings. Come to anything that you feel you want to be a part of. Because what happens is only a few people show up. And when we get ready to vote on something, it affects everybody. So that's my final word for the day.
Even just leave a comment here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's the first start
Absolutely.
is the dialogue that we have to have.
Absolutely.
You know, and we can do that via social media.
I want to
Absolutely.
say hi to my uncle, and how you doing, Tony
That's my
Sanchez?
niece.
Tony
That's my
Sanchez.
niece,
Hi,
Tony
Tony.
Sanchez.
Okay, how you doing, Tony? Just want to say thank you for everyone tuning in, and tune in not just to us, but tune in to our local politics as well.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, bye bye.
We'll do it again.
I'm most definitely.